Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated April 12th, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about two important newspaper articles which are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. And that is why please watch this video till the end, and let's now start with the first important newspaper article without any further delay. Now, the first newspaper article deals with the data protection bill, which is going to be presented in the monsoon session, says the government, in front of the Supreme Court, right? Let's analyze what is going to be there in the new privacy bill. And this article now becomes very important for the GS paper 2, that is government policies and interventions in various areas and issues arising out of their design and implementation, right? Let's first understand the context of it, and then we are going to analyze the data protection bill in detail, right? So now the Union government informed the Supreme Court on Tuesday that a new law, namely the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2022 to enforce individual privacy in online space was ready, right? This particular bill, that is Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, is now ready to be presented in the Parliament in the monsoon session, right? So what exactly is this particular new bill? So the new bill, if passed by the Parliament, will replace the current information technology, reasonable security practices and procedures and sensitive data or information rules, which was notified in 2011. So you can notice over here, these are only the rules. These are not act, these are not bill. Now the new bill is going to replace these rules, IT rules, which are set up in 2011, right? So now the Supreme Court has recognized privacy as a fundamental right in 2017. 2017, what happened? The Putwasamy judgment case happened, which basically said that right to privacy is a fundamental right. Now, in order to implement that particular judgment, we do have to have a personal data protection bill or a personal data protection act, and that is why this particular thing is going to be recognized in the new bill which is going to be presented. And it highlighted, this particular judgment in 2017 highlighted the need to protect online personal data from prying eyes, and the purpose of the bill is to provide for the processing of digital personal data in a manner that recognizes both the rights of the individual to protect their personal data and the need to process personal data for the lawful purposes, right? And if you are going to process it for the lawful purposes, there are basically three conditions laid down in it. We are going to talk about it in the later part when we talk about right to privacy in general, right? So for now, we need to just protect the personal data of the individuals, and at the same time we are able to use that personal data for the lawful purposes as well. Now, data under the new bill is defined as representation of information, facts, concepts, opinions, or instructions in a manner suitable for communication, interpretation, or processing by humans or by automated means, right? So this is the meaning of the data under the new bill: representation of information, facts, concepts, opinions, or instructions in a manner suitable for communication, interpretation, or processing by humans or by automated means. Now this is the particular meaning of the data under the new bill, and the new bill also defines the data fiduciary, data principal, and the data processor. Who exactly is the data fiduciary? Data fiduciary are the persons who have been determined the purpose, who determine the purpose and the means of processing of the personal data. Then we have the data principal, who is the individual to whom the personal data is related to. And we have the data processors, who are basically processing the personal data on the behalf of the data fiduciary, right? So data fiduciary is you, data principal is the person to whom the personal data is related, and then we have the data processor who is processing the data of the data fiduciary, right? So all of these terms are defined in this particular new bill according to the government, right? So now what exactly is the right to privacy? So basically the right to privacy concept was very old, it is very old, but right to privacy at this point of time, it relates to the data privacy in the online world. And the first such case which came about in this particular regard is the Puttaswamy judgment. Now, the Supreme Court described the privacy and its importance in the landmark decision of case Puttaswamy versus Union of India in 2017. And it basically said that right to privacy comes under the Article 21, that is right to life and personal liberty. And the Puttaswamy judgment holds that right to privacy is protected as a fundamental constitutional right under Article 14, 19 and 21 of the Constitution of India, right? Article 14, right to equality, and Article 19, right to freedom of speech and expression, and then we have Article 21, right to life and personal liberty. And these fundamental rights protect the right to privacy. This was upheld in the Puttaswamy judgment in the 2017, right? But the judgment said that there are some of the restrictions which can be imposed by the state in order to counter the fact that your privacy is the most important fact, right? So it should pass the three tests in order to be legitimate by the state in order to uphold or restrict your privacy, right? So the restrictions on the privacy can be done on the basis of three tests. If the three tests passes, then your right to privacy can be restricted. And the first one is that such state action must have a legitimate legislative mandate. Second, it must be pursuing a legitimate state purpose. And the third is that it must be proportionate. That is, such state action, both in its nature and extent, must be necessary in a democratic society, and action ought to be the least intrusive of the available alternative to accomplish the ends. And if the test of proportionality is passed, then your privacy can be restricted, right? But these are some of the special cases, for example, the national security and all of these things. But most of the times, your right to privacy is prevailed over everything else, right? So this is it regarding the right to privacy. This is it regarding the data protection bill, which is going to be tabled in the monsoon session, right? So let's now head to the next important newspaper article. But before that, what exactly can be the way forward? So the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2022 must be implemented at the earliest, and it must pass the three conditions stated in the Puttaswamy judgment. That is the three restrictions which are being passed as well, right? So let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article deals with the data figures which have been presented by the IMF in its particular report called the World Economic Outlook, right? So it says that India is set to grow by the 5.9% this fiscal, and this kind of newspaper article becomes very important for the GS paper 3, that is Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. Now, it can also be considered important for the GS paper 2, that is we have mentioned an IMF, which is an international organization. So important international organizations also forms the part of the international relations. So it can be considered important for the GS paper 2 as well. Let's first understand the context of it, and then we are going to talk about the organization, which is the IMF. So IMF says that India is going to grow by the 5.9% in the 2023 to 2024 year. And this is a downward revision of 0.2% since the January forecast, and the IMF estimated a 6.3% economic growth rate for India for the next fiscal year, a downward revision of 0.3 percentage points from the last forecast, right? And the growth numbers were released as part of the World Economic Outlook, a rocky recovery report. This particular report is presented by the IMF, right? And this particular report at this point of time, it has been launched at the start of the World Bank and the IMF spring meetings in the Washington. And if the recent financial sector stresses are contained, the IMF projects global growth to settle at 3% 5 years from now, and this is the lowest 5-year projection in decades, thanks to the COVID, right? So now the IMF suggested that central banks remain steady with their anti-inflation stance, but also adjust and use their full set of policy instruments while providing targeted support for those hit by the cost of living crisis, right? So this was mentioned in the newspaper article. Let's now talk about what exactly is this IMF, or International Monetary Fund. Now, International Monetary Fund is an organization of basically 190 member countries, and each of which has representation on IMF's executive board in proportion to its financial importance, so that the most powerful countries in the global economy have the most voting power. So if you have the most money, you are going to get the most power, right? So this is how the world of the IMF works. And basically they have the objectives. Some of the objectives are: foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, reduce poverty around the world, macroeconomic growth, policy advice and financing for the developing countries, and promotion of exchange rate stability and international payment system. So these are some of the objectives of the IMF. But what exactly does the IMF do? Basically, it furthers the international monetary cooperation and encourages the expansion of trade and economic growth. It discourages the policies that would harm the prosperity, and it also fulfills these missions. IMF countries work collaboratively with each other and with other international bodies, right? So now what exactly are the functions of the IMF? So the first one is to provide the financial assistance to the developing and the poor world. Second is the IMF surveillance. So it oversees the international monetary system and monitors the economic and financial policies of its 190 member countries. And it also basically sees the capacity development, or it oversees the capacity development. It provides technical assistance and training to the central banks, finance ministries, tax authorities, and other economic institutions. So this helps countries raise public revenues, modernize public banking system, develop strong legal frameworks, improve governance, and enhance the reporting of macroeconomic and financial data. So it also helps the countries to make progress towards the sustainable development goals. So these are basic functions of the IMF, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. And this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.